The total transfer of responsibility, accountability, and authority as Commander Nowak is relieved by Commander William. In keeping with naval traditions, honors will be rendered to members of the official party as they arrive and depart, including sideboys, bells, and piping. Guests, please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing until completion of the invocation. Post side boys.
Post side boys, aye, sir. Side boys. Post.
Commander, United States Navy, arriving. Naval Submarine Support Center, arriving. Vice Admiral, United States Navy, retired, arriving. Retire the side boys.
Retire the side boys, aye, sir. Side boys, left or right, face, forward, march.
Color guard, parade the colors.
Parade the colors, aye, sir. Forward, march. Silver, dolphin, start. Present, colors.
Ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem. Retire the colors.
Retire the colors, aye, sir. Carry. Colors. Ready. Cut. Right. Face. Forward. March.
Chaplain Mallory will now deliver the invocation.
Let us pray. Lord, your word says you'll perfect that which concerns us, so we ask you to shape our desire to be tough and confident. In your mercy and loving kindness, we ask that you not forsake the work of your own hands. Send your trust forward from Commander Nowak to Commander William. Give them and all of us wisdom, favor, good understanding, and high esteem in your sight and among one another. We thank you for supplying and preparing support for the Navy through the leaders you bring and send. We believe they are your servants and how you want to shape us now, so let us be accountable to you and to them for both what we've done and what we may have failed to do. Help us to commit daily, knowing that you, Lord, provide daily. By honoring you and not leaning on our own understanding, may we prove competent. By staying our minds on you and living with courage, may we prove tough. Standing tough and being competent in your Holy Spirit, send your blessings through us and carry us forward to perfectly love you and one another. Amen.
Guests, please be seated. Vice Admiral Chaz Richard, Commander Submarine Forces, could not be here with us today, but sends a personal message for both Commander Nowak and Commander William. It reads, Brian, congratulations on a superb job commanding Naval Submarine Support Center New London. During your tenure, you constantly delivered outstanding warfighting readiness, support to 22 submarines and 4 major commanders from Groton, Connecticut to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. You skillfully led a team of 154 sailors and civilians, providing exceptional support for supply, medical, legal, administration that enhanced operational readiness of all Groton submarines. Your dedicated efforts were instrumental in keeping our Northeast region warfighters ready to meet all operational objectives. Well done. Lisa and I wish you and Amy the best as you report to Submarine Squadron 4. For Commander William, Shawn, you have been well prepared and should embrace the assignment with passion and confidence. Your proven leadership will ensure continued success at NSSC New London. Best of luck to you and Andra, Vice Admiral Richard sends. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Commander Brian J. Nowak.
Thank you, XO. Let me extend a warm welcome to everyone for joining us on board historic ship Nautilus to share in this change of command ceremony. Thank you to Commander Brad Boyd, Kathy Lotring, and the entire Nautilus crew for sharing this beautiful spot and providing this setup. Admiral Delaga, captains, commodores, fellow commanding officers, and leaders from around the base, thank you for being here with Shawn and I today. I'm pleased to introduce today's guest speaker. Let me take a moment to expand on the humble biography in the pamphlet. Vice Admiral Connor grew up not far from here in Weymouth, Massachusetts, and graduated from Bowdoin College. In addition to his command tours, he's influenced a wide bullpen of officers. One of the most prevalent factors in those, as a teacher for prospective commanding officers, he built an environment where officers learned how to make decisions in complex and risky operations. In total, he prepared over 100 officers on their way to submarine command. As a flag officer, he served on the Joint Staff, the staff for the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, and in several director roles on the Chief of Naval Operations Staff, including as Director of Undersea Warfare Division, where he directed the execution of a multi-billion-dollar budget for all undersea-related accounts. Now, American author and business management expert Jim Collins conducted and analyzed the business performance of 1,435 companies over a 30-year period. He looked for the good companies that underwent a definitive turning point and became great companies, and then sustained that great performance for many years afterwards. Out of those over 1,400 companies, only 11 made that performance cut. One of the most prevalent factors in those companies turning from good to great was that they all had a certain kind of chief executive that he dubbed as a level 5 leader. The most important characteristic that I picked out of those 11 CEOs was their extreme personal humility and intense professional will. Extreme personal humility and intense professional will. And the reason I tell you this is because I've always viewed Vice Admiral Mike Connor in this light. In this important context, because of the legacy he left us in the submarine force wasn't due to some bull-dogged charisma. It was his ability to communicate and his unrelenting commitment to high standards and his vision of the submarine force that the United States needed. And I didn't realize it back then, but from the time I met him back in June 2004, and through 2 tours in which I served for him directly, he exhibited those characteristics and still does to this day in his role as CEO of Thayer Mahan. I had the pleasure of serving under Vice Admiral Connor during his time as Commander of Submarine Forces, and he allowed me there to participate in the development and execution of the force's vision that pioneered the introduction of autonomous undersea robots into real-world operations. And this endeavor continues to this day. I was honored to be a part of that back then, and I'm honored to have him here today. Please join me in welcoming Vice Admiral Mike Connor.
Thank you, Brian, for that extremely kind introduction. I will offer that at the reception, my wife Kate is here, and she'll give you the counter argument. It's a pleasure to be here among you all. Admiral Delaga, Captain Hudeshell, Captain Teamy, Commodores Ute, Miller, and Captain Moore, thanks for joining us today. And it's great to be here on the historic ship Nautilus. And it's the first time in a while I've been on a ship that's older than me, and it feels good. I want to talk about a few things here today. And the first one I want to talk about is the incredibly important mission of the Naval Submarine Support Center in London. And then we'll talk about the Navy career and the leadership of Brian Nowak. And then we'll welcome Commander Shawn and his family. But let's start with the 174 people that make up NSSC. As one of my favorite leaders like to point out, is this place is part of the submarine force weapons system. And the Navy could probably do a little bit better job to recognize this. But keep in mind, no one goes on deployment, goes to war, or goes to overhaul without the support and the guidance provided by NSSC. You make sure that the people who go to sea are supported. You make sure they get paid, they get promoted. You help them with legal issues. You help them with their career choices. You make sure they have food in parks. And you have the, what I call the rock stars of submarine maintenance, the performance monitoring team. You take care of 23 submarines and about 3,500 sailors. I believe during Commander Nowak's tenure, you've sent about 18 submarines on extended deployments. And you host the special technical skills that we share across the force. You know, we're proud of how we do maintenance in the submarine force. But in addition to the maintenance we do on the ships, NSSC helps do maintenance for the people in the force. You take care of their medical needs. And when they're broken or damaged, you fix them. You have this organization here called the Embedded Mental Health Team. And I'm proud to see that it's running so well. I had a little bit to do with getting it started. And what you do that we all appreciate so much is that you help them realize that the strains of going on deployment, living far from home, having a young family, and doing all those things at the same time can actually have an effect on us. And we finally realize, and we're really proving it with this team, that submarine sailors are like prize athletes on professional sports teams, maybe minus a few temper tantrums and helmet blows. But think about it. On a $3 billion submarine with about 150 people, that means each sailor is responsible for about $20 million of national treasure that we take in harm's way. And to finally account for the level of performance that it takes day in and day out to fulfill those responsibilities is long overdue. So thank you to the crew and the leaders of NSSC for all that you do. And now let's shift to Commander Nowak, the leader of this great team. Thank you for your leadership in your 23 years of commissioned service in the Navy. And as you mentioned, I was honored to serve with you twice. I know your family fairly well. I know that you're up for the adventure and was proud to see you all serving overseas and representing your country so well there. In Japan, I saw you lead a dedicated team that supported the engineering and logistics issues of submarines and ships across the Western Pacific, the Indian Ocean, and the Arabian Gulf. And I do remember when I first met you, looking at you and Amy, and you both looked so young and fresh-faced, flowing locks of blonde hair, and Amy still has all those attributes. I think you're batting 2 out of 3, which isn't bad. Fast forward for a few years, we worked together in the Submarine Force headquarters in Norfolk, Virginia. And as, again, you said, we plotted some of the major moves of the Submarine Force going forward. And I think we proved to ourselves that we can make a plan, pick out some concrete steps, and make actual things happen. And, you know, I had the easy part of that. I had to state what had to be done. And then it was people like you who actually had to do the hard part, which was to work across many organizations and actually make that happen. But among those moves included making the case for the Columbia-class ballistic missile submarines, which will start construction just down the river here very soon. And that work will be done by many of your southeastern Connecticut friends and neighbors. And of course, I served with you primarily in support jobs. Your hardest jobs, like the one you have now, were on the sea, at sea or on the waterfront. And I know of your work in those capacities from your peers who, like you, are waterfront tough. And it's a lot harder for those who are new to this business to perform day in and day out with all the complications of working on the waterfront to make things happen than it is to do it from a distance on shore or in Washington, D.C. So while this day is essentially about you and celebrating all that you've done, let's also talk about your family. Amy's been on this journey with you, and she's done very well. And our country is better for it. Thank you, Amy, for your service. Patrick, Matthew, and Olivia, you've endured the frequent moves, the new schools, all the things that make it hard to be part of a military family. And I'm sure you're better for it. And I'm also sure that those hardships never felt in real time like you would be better for it. Maybe you've even said, some of the magic words that I've heard from my children after a move. Dad, you have ruined my life. The one that said that to me, she's doing quite well. It's going to be okay. And I'm so glad to see that Brian's parents, Karen and Jean, are here to celebrate all that your son has accomplished. And I look forward to talking to you in person and congratulating you on the great work that you did raising this man. And similarly, we're glad to see that Amy's parents, Ed and Rhonda, are here and made the trip to recognize all that she has accomplished. I'd like to welcome Commander Shawn William and his wife Audra, their daughters Clara and Stella. For the crew at NSSC, that name is William, no S. Don't mess it up, your life will be better. Seriously though, Shawn, your background provides you with the skill to lead this team. You two are waterfront tough. You've done difficult engineering tours at sea and in overhaul, so you can truly say that you have experienced the challenges that those that you will be guiding are going through. So thanks in advance for your work in this critical waterfront assignment. And this, I'm happy to welcome you back to New London. I did all 5 of my sea tours on this waterfront. I loved it. I still love the area. That's why we moved back here when we finished our time in the service. And I just hope that you and the entire William family enjoy this place as much as we have and continue to do. So with that, I will ask Commander Nowak, please join me to the left of the podium so we can properly recognize your many accomplishments as the commander of NSSC.
Yes, please stand for the award presentation. The President of the United States takes pleasure in presenting the Meritorious Service Medal to Commander Brian J. Nowak, United States Navy, for service set forth in the following citation. For outstanding meritorious service as Commanding Officer, Naval Submarine Support Center, New London, from October 2016 to September 2019. As the primary interface between various organizations supporting submarine operations for submarine squadrons 4 and 12, he was instrumental in ensuring efficient and effective coordination between all supporting commands and agencies. He realigned Performance Monitoring Team New London into the Naval Submarine Support Center hierarchy, creating a more dynamic team to assist waterfront units in their ability to conduct all assigned missions, both locally and abroad. He managed a $42 million repair budget and more than $45 million operating budget supporting submarine operations, maintenance, and repair for more than 19 home-ported submarines. His mentorship of all officers improved deck plate leadership throughout the submarine base and was a key component in Groton's embedded mental health program. His leadership resulted in a diverse staff with greater efficiency and improved support to more than 23 submarines, superior preparations for overseas deployment on missions vital to national security, and multiple successful changes of home port. Commander Nowak's exceptional professionalism, personal initiative, and loyal devotion to duty reflected credit upon himself and were in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. Signed, Vice Admiral Richard, Commander, Submarine Forces Atlantic. Yes, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, Commander Brian J. Nowak, Commanding Officer, Naval Submarine Support Center, New London.
Well, this is about to get real. Seems like just yesterday I was up here in the seat that Shawn is in today. It was about this temperature, about this blue sky, maybe a little windier. Well, Admiral Connor, thank you for those flattering words and for being here on on this memorable day for me and my family. You know, every naval officer quietly observes the admirals, captains, and other senior naval leaders around him. And it's often these officers who are the inspiration for how we behave as leaders ourselves. You have been that and much more throughout my entire career, so thank you. When Admiral Chester Nimitz assumed command of the Pacific Fleet on December 31st, 1941, submarines were already operating against the enemy. They were the only units of the fleet that could come to grips with the Japanese for months after the United States entry into the war. After the war, Admiral Nimitz said this: "It was to the submarine force that I looked to carry the load. It is to the everlasting honor and glory of our submarine personnel that they never failed us in our days of peril." This is the legacy that today's United States Navy Silent Service strives to live out, and it's the backdrop that inspires this Groton waterfront's continual reach for excellence. And it's against this backdrop that NSSC seeks to support our Groton submariners. Now I'm going to take the liberty here to reflect on this tour and on my career. Although not officially my retirement ceremony, this is my last official event. And as such, I'm going to indulge myself with a little bit of personal narcissism with some last words. But first, I want to talk to NSSC. I could never have imagined a better tour than this one to culminate my naval career. After serving 3 years here, I've come to appreciate command, life, and work all in novel ways. You know, the pamphlet has our mission statements for NSSC and PMT, but maybe I can sum them up in another way. Early in my tour, I heard this one time. Someone said this, that NSSC is the Amazon of the waterfront. Well, I've come to believe that wholeheartedly. It's a tight-knit team working across many disciplines, from parts to people, and from medical to spiritual, doing what we do best, and that's supporting warfighters. Every day, I eagerly came into the office waiting to see what accomplishment would surprise me that day, and I was never let down. Now, some of these victories were not easy, I know that. For the most part, though, a particular day's win was really a culmination of a long slog of tasks, each hard-fought with an unbroken relay of work, which ultimately came down to each person working diligently in their swim lane and constantly seeking to get better and better results for themselves. Now, our new Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Mike Gilday, said in his recent message to the fleet, "For the first time in a very long time, we face serious challenges at sea and around the world." A little later, he goes on, that people are our most important weapon system. And finally, we will remain true to our core attributes of integrity, accountability, initiative, and toughness. And I believe NSSC's mission seeks to fulfill that charge. Now, looking back, I joined the Navy because I wanted to chase Soviet submarines around the Atlantic. That may not have been exactly what I've done for most of my career, as I've served 2 tours hiding on ballistic missile submarines and 7 years on shore duty now. But I was compelled to commit myself back then to these duties as a sailor because of their importance to our national security. As you know, strategic deterrence is our submarine force's #1 mission area. And close behind is what these fast attack submarines that deploy out of here do every day. And as you heard Admiral Connor, 18 deployments over the last 3 years. I couldn't believe it until I added them all up myself. What a pace for this waterfront. The undersea environment is getting more crowded, more complex, and more contested than we've seen since the time of the Soviet Union. The year 2020 will see 6 new Russian submarines join their fleet. The last time they got that many was the year I started the academy back in 1992, which was right after the Soviet Union fell apart. They may not have the raw numbers now like they used to, but their submarines are incredible, and they are war machines. Our new Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, during a recent visit to Electric Boat, reiterated the central role submarines play in our national defense and in the Navy's mission. He said that the U.S. has a distinct advantage in its submarine fleet, well-built machines of war, he called them. He said, quote, "New strategic reality that the submarine fleet is uniquely positioned to lead the way," end quote. So you can see the importance of these submarines on our Groton waterfront, and by association, the sailors assigned to them. And it's NSSC's mission to ensure these crews are ready to deploy, take these machines of war thousands of miles away from home. Getting that mission done requires excellence from everyone assigned to NSSC in their daily duties. It requires you to know your jobs in and out, which in itself is no easy task, as many of you work in roles that greatly differ from your rating and from your sea duty experience. Now, I've been commissioned now for 23 years, and you would think that I've seen it all, but there are plenty of days that go by, and I'm saying to somebody, you won't believe this one. Unlike everything else we do in submarines, there aren't any defined procedures that come from above for most of the problems that we work through, because they're unique, one-off issues that come up quite infrequently. But the amazing thing is that this team comes together through communication, through professionalism, and in working through relationships with other people and commands around this base and outside the gates to ensure everything gets resolved and gets resolved quickly. You know, we work with Commander Christy Weimer at the Naval Health Clinic, Subbase, Captain Todd Moore, Subschool, Captain Jack Hotteshell, the squadrons, Commodore Drew Miller and Commodore Dave Ute. You know, it's just a few. And of course, there's all those outside the gates and elsewhere in the Navy. You know, in our submarine admiral's commander's intent to the entire force, it says that the empty submarine sitting next to the pier is capable of doing only one thing: rusting. It is the men and women of the crew and the supporting organizations with trust in each other which brings that submarine to life. You demonstrate consistently your foresight, looking ahead to see where the waterfront could benefit from a tweak in some program and seeking improvements to our internal processes. So let me highlight some of those that stick in my memory. Unfortunately, there are just way too many. I can't delve into all of them. Well, up until 3 years ago, we had an industrial paper shredder that submarine crews would use to bring their hundreds of pounds of old documents in a trip for destruction. Literally tons of paper was shredded each year. One of my first acts in command was to release the message telling the base that the shredder's been decommissioned. The machine that we had was at least 30 years old, no longer met any standards, and just plain posed a health risk to operate, so we had to decommission. A replacement or complete refurbishment was going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And after a year of contracting out shred services and the logistical nightmare that caused, Chief James Smith, one of my fantastic crew members, came to me at the department head meeting with a proposal. He worked up for a new machine at a quarter of the cost and an annual operating cost less than what we were paying for shred services. Well, we got Chief Smith the money and away he went. Our new machine has been up and running ever since and servicing not only the waterfront but many other commands around the base. Chief Smith, thank you for this legacy. That shredder was one of many projects undertaken. Another surprise early on was an opportunity for NSSC to take over special security clearance management for over 1,300 people here in Groton. For those who are not familiar, the process of obtaining a security clearance requires spending hours filling out online forms, sending it off to somewhere in the ether, and then it can take up to a year for the government to make a final decision. Well, we hired Mr. Jeff Smith, who masterminded this turnover in June last year. And in parallel with that, leading people from all throughout NSSC, he renovated a dilapidated space that we inherited and built a first-class facility where we now hold weekly classified seminars that educate all the folks here on the waterfront. So it's not just people with the name Smith who have led achievements at NSSC. Excellence is founded in a much smaller daily discipline as well, on the day-to-day grind of commitment to a mission. It's submarine logistics specialist 2nd class Brandon Wright and 1st class Latoya Shepard, who stay late into the evening hours on a gorgeous summer Friday afternoon to run down parts for a deployed submarine. It's the PMTOA team, who flies overseas on a couple of day notice to fix a submarine circuit breaker. It's submarine 2nd class Joseph Tooley, who embarks for weeks on board a short-handed ship's office. And he doesn't just mark time, He seeks out places that needed the most attention and brought them up to par. It's the medical team meeting sailors at midnight when they arrive at the airport, and a submarine logistics specialist flying to Norway on less than 24 hours notice to hand carry a part, once again, to one of our deployers. It's nuclear machinist mate first class Austin Jones, who took his role as command fitness leader by the horns and brought us to new levels, killing us with calisthenics and also upping the ante with frisbee and football, executing the best run PFA I've seen in my entire career. It's the people working diligently until the job is done on their computers, in the clinics and in the warehouses with their paperwork, up and down the stairs. That's where this satisfaction is manufactured. I've been blessed to work with some amazing people. Amazing chaplains, Lieutenant Brian Gibbons and Lieutenant Commander Todd Mallory. All been key leaders to tying together the people, not only on your ships, but also on our NSSC team. Lieutenant Commander Greg McCleary and Stephen Briggs invested themselves in training and mentoring supply departments across the waterfront here in Groton up in Portsmouth. Senior Chief Yeoman Jesse Mitchell and Chief Yeoman Brian Whitehurst cleaned up and sped up the Defense Travel System accounting. Navy Counselor First Class Erica Ward, who brought new levels of career management to the entire waterfront. And Operations Department picks up where many disparate and disjointed functions. Lieutenant Greg Poser adeptly balances a diverse set of divisions to support all these waterfront operations. Medical Department, lots to think about here, and as Admiral Connor mentioned, embedded mental health. We brought this program into being here in Groton during my tour, starting with licensed clinical social workers on partial duty from the Naval Health Clinic, New England. NSSC brought aboard our first permanent EMH provider, Lieutenant Phil Dang, who along with Mr. Steve DiFilippo built this program not only here on this waterfront, but also helps guide the course of EMH for all of subland. Embedded mental health has been a key initiative for our submarine force in building sailor toughness. This was all built upon a team of doctors and chief corpsmen who were always ready to deploy to meet a patient in need at all hours of the day. Much of what NSSC does involves work by a small but highly proficient team, this is the often overloaded legal team. Two JAGs I've worked with here, Lieutenant Jen Beiske and Lieutenant Commander Kelly Kohlhofer, and their LNs work through some of the most unique cases and intense and massive cases I've seen in parallel with a din of constant administration that requires equally meticulous attention. Chief Legalman Rashina Banks and Legalman First Class Sherry Cuffey, I apologize at last for my incessant line of questioning, but that you always dutifully and knowledgeably answer. You know, one of the things that we have been trying to do a much better job at over the course of this tour is connecting with our command's families. Of course, Facebook was one step taken there, but the giant leap was bringing on board an ombudsman. Mrs. Mindy Smith stepped up to that call and inaugurated the NSSC ombudsman position. Mindy, I'm personally grateful for you and your service. It's too bad Shawn and Audra won't be able to capitalize on most of that, because I know that you and James are pending transfer to take charge of your own submarine radio division. You've been a personal model of professionalism in this role, and I personally have learned a thing or two about empathy from you. NSSC, with its many departments of highly specialized functions and unique staffing, has the propensity to become a command in which each department is its own silo. It takes a people-oriented team builder to serve as NSSC's Command Master Chief and inspire this level of communication and teamwork needed for NSSC to do its work as a team and inside the larger Team New London framework. Master Chiefs Carrie Carroll, Master Chief Matthew Schechter, and now Master Chief Freddie Richter have all done this masterfully. NSSC would not be on the right course without Master Chiefs like these, who, with the other entities on this base, keep submariners at the center of all our effort. Now this command will not function. Any command would not function, and the pace of work would not get done and a commanding officer's guidance would not get executed without a capable and demanding executive officer. Both of my executive officers, Lieutenant Nathan Rodriguez and Lieutenant Matthew Brophy, have been those second in command. Of note, both have been selected for promotion to Lieutenant Commander, a testament to their leadership and professional skill. I owe much to Nate and to Matt for keeping me in the channel and for complimenting my leadership. For the whole of NSSC, there's no way for me to vocalize everything that you have done and how proud I am to have been a member of this team. You look out for each other and improve each other, both professionally and personally. You will continue to look for ways to prepare these crews for deployment more efficiently and more capably than in previous iterations. Perhaps the best way to show off this professionalism is to highlight the fact that as of today, you've maintained yourselves clear of any alcohol-related incidents. In fact, this string has gone on now for 1,966 days. I still remember our 1,000-day picnic and thought that was a milestone. I urge you to continue to be professionals and personal friends to each other, blow past the 2,000 mark and on to 3,000 days. Crying out loud, call for a ride. Now, as I get ready to read my orders for the last time in my Navy career, I want to reflect on the last 27 years. In 1990, the movie version of Tom Clancy's novel, The Hunt for Red October, came out. I'd read the book much earlier, but it was the movie that gave me the idea of becoming a submariner and hunting Soviet nuclear-powered submarines around the Atlantic. And fortunately, in late 1991, the Soviet Union was officially dissolved. But by that time, I was well into my studies at the Naval Academy. Excuse me, by the time that realized itself, I was well into my studies. And the grandeur of the Soviet fleet and the submarine force was waning. But there was no turning back for me. Alas, I was destined to serve in submarines. For the first 16 years of my life, I'm not sure my parents were thinking that a Navy life was where I was going to end up. However, Mom and Dad, it's upon the values I developed in our home, under your parenting, that I built my orientation to service. Hard work, caring for fellow citizens, commitment, generosity are all the virtues that I brought with me and I still hold dear to me today. Thank you for your love back then. Thank you for continuing to support Amy and I throughout the decades. Now, over the course of our adult lives, we've been doing these moves and deployments, where Amy would find herself dealing with 2 or 3 kids in the midst of a cross-country move. She would call on her parents, and they answered that call each and every time when I wasn't there to participate. And Rhonda, I know you're proud of her, and for this life that has not been necessarily easy. Your support for her and our entire family through all the moves and my absences has made it at least palatable. And thank you for being ever present. We've been on a thrilling Navy adventure for the last 23 years and change. Amy's been with me for the whole ride, and I couldn't think of it doing it another way or sharing it with anybody else. We've been able to share this life, smiling through its ups and buttressing each other through its downs. I could only hope to appreciate the sacrifices you have made that permit me to this life of service. The opportunities that you had to pass up, the efforts and emotions that go along with single parenting, uprooting the family every few years, saddling you with your own Navy spouse duties, dealing with abrupt schedule changes, more often leaving my dinner to get cold than surprising you with the need to set up a place for me. There's no way for me to express the amount of gratitude that you deserve. Most importantly, though, you've been my rock, keeping me in line, and I certainly need a lot of keeping in line. And keeping me in line has been the key to leading a successful career. I'm eager to start our next phase of life together. It's just a few more months at Squadron 4 before I retire. Now, Patrick, Matthew, and Olivia, I can't begin to tell you how proud I am of you. When I think about how Mom and I started our lives together, it's just the two of us. Then the two of us with a dog. Then you, Patrick, then Matthew comes along, and I'm out to sea for basically your first 3 years. Then we move to Japan, the four of us. Then Olivia comes along, and I get to miss most of her colic while I'm out on patrols in the Alabama. Now we're here 23 years later, kids in college, high school, and our baby Olivia, now a young lady. Lots of great memories, and I can't wait to make many more. Shawn, I couldn't think of a better officer to turn over NSSC to. I'm positive your time at Squadron 11 San Diego has prepared you well. Amy and I wish you and Audra success and professional satisfaction, and we both hope that you enjoy Southeast Connecticut. And finally, my last charge to NSSC. One of my favorite characters in history, Sir Winston Churchill, said this relating to our profession. Of all the branches of men in the forces, there is none which shows more devotion and faces grimmer perils than the submariners. Of all the branches of the men in the forces, there is none which shows more devotion and faces grimmer peril than the submariners. The men and women who we send down this river today will not be facing Axis submarine hunters or the Imperial Navy. But they have their own challenges. Although they operate alone, far from home, they do not operate by themselves. They have the cover of those working to support them and their families back home. This is the reason that the work you do matters. What you do day in and day out matters. It is vital in supporting these warfighters, and we all strive for excellence. I will now read my orders.
NSSC, attention. Yes, please stand.
Front, Chief of Naval Personnel, subject, Troopers Order 2189. When directed by Reporting Senior, detached from duty as Commanding Officer, Naval Submarine Support Center, New London, and report Commander Submarine Squadron 4 for duty as Squadron Deputy. Commander William, I am ready to be relieved.
Ladies and gentlemen, Commander Shawn T. Williams, Respective Commanding Officer, Naval Submarine Support Center, New London.
Read my orders. Front, Chief of Naval Personnel. Subject, Troopers Order 0799. When directed by Reporting Senior, detached from Submarine Squadron 11. Report to as Commanding Officer, Naval Submarine Support Center, New London. Commander Nowak, I'm ready to relieve you. I relieve you. I stand relieved. Officers, release the message.
Release the message, aye, sir. Sir, the message has been released.
Very well. Admiral Connor, Rear Admiral Delaga, distinguished guests, family and friends, thank you for joining Audra and I today on this very special occasion. I do not want to miss this opportunity to mention that we're holding this ceremony on the USS Nautilus, the world's first operational nuclear-powered submarine. On January 17, 1955, Nautilus' first commanding officer, Gene Wilkinson, ordered to cast off all lines and send a historic message underway on nuclear power. And while we won't be getting underway today, it is an honor to hold the ceremony here. I want to thank you and Amy for your warm and seamless turnover. You have made this transition as smooth as possible, and Audra and I really do appreciate it. In Congratulations on your extremely successful tour. You have transferred to NSSC over the past 3 years, and I know the staff is ready for challenge we may encounter. While I know your retirement's around the corner, I'm glad that you're going up to just the fourth deck for the next 4 or 5 months. So I'm sure there's going to be times that I'm going to have to walk up. I would like to thank my CMC, Master Chief Richter, and my XO, Lieutenant Farofi, for all your work in making today execute flawless. To the staff of Naval Submarine Support Center, the importance of your role in supporting submarines from Groton to Portsmouth, New Hampshire cannot be underestimated. It is because of your hard work and sacrifice that these submarines can get underway and execute their mission. People are the Navy's greatest asset, and I am humbled and honored to have this opportunity to be your commanding officer. To my family and friends that have traveled across the country to be here today, TK, Brian, Susie, and Adam, thank you for being part of my journey. Clara, you have extraordinary childhood. You're resilient, you're independent, and even though you're living 200 or 2,058 miles away, not that I'm counting, we know that you will thrive at the University of Utah. As parents, we look forward to watching you grow over the next 4 years. Stella, this is an exciting time for you. As you chart your path through high school, you're excited to be part of your journey of self-discovery. And as promised, in about 10 minutes, you start your conversation with your partner. Remember, never stop singing. Audra, 21 years, this journey continues. So looking forward to our new adventures over the next several years here in the Northeast. And what was said 21 years ago still rings true. I love you now and forever. I'm glad to be doing this journey with you. Once again, I would like to thank everybody for joining us today. It's been an extraordinary ceremony. Thank you.
Yes, please stand for the benediction and remain standing.
Receive this blessing. May you experience God and enter positions to receive the goodness that God graciously gives. Amen.
Post the side, boys.
Post the side boys, aye, sir. Side boys. Left, face. Forward. March. Side boys. Left or right. Face.
Vice Admiral, United States Navy, retired, departing. Commander, United States Navy, departing. Naval Submarine Support Center, departing. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. Please remain at your seats until the special guests of the official party have departed. Commander William and Commander Nowak cordially invite you to a reception being held in the Submarine Force Museum.